Similar increases in March and February. And that is the latest from Wall Street. I'm Cherry Keenan live at the New York Stock Exchange. Don't miss Moneyline with Lou Dobbs coming to you tonight and all week from Chicago. Inside Politics is next on CNN.
Although he has not yet clinched his party's presidential nod, Bill Clinton's in the market for a running mate.
Oval Office incumbent George Bush talks urban issues with congressional leaders from both sides of the aisle. It's all part of Inside Politics 92.
This is Inside Politics 92 with Catherine Crier at the CNN Center in Atlanta and Bernard Shaw in Washington.
Thanks for joining us. It's primary time again with presidential preference tests in West Virginia and Nebraska now underway. The all but certain winners, George Bush, who has a lock on renomination, and Bill Clinton, who's more than 80% of the way to the Democratic prize. Lightning struck the Arkansas governor's campaign overnight with unelectrifying results. His Little Rock headquarters was knocked down to one phone line by a severe thunderstorm. Said a staffer at midday, the whole place is going crazy. Still, it takes more than a bolt from above to stop the Arkansas governor. He's now en route to Minnesota. Prior to leaving Arkansas, he named a veteran of 3 Democratic administrations to start screening potential running mates. More from CNN national political correspondent Gene Randall.
Arkansas Governor Bill Clinton on Tuesday spent half a day in his state capitol offices here in Little Rock, though presidential politics is always a fact of life at this stage of the campaign. Clinton made that evident 2 ways: by taking a step toward naming a vice presidential running mate, and by criticizing President Bush's newly announced proposals for the inner cities.
He has been very half-hearted, and half of this administration have opposed those initiatives, and that's one reason they haven't gone anywhere in Congress. But secondly, it doesn't go nearly far enough. I mean, we need a whole new aggressive approach to put the capital into the inner cities.
Shortly before the Clinton campaign named Warren Christopher to head up a vice presidential search team, Clinton was talking about the selection process itself.
This first decision will be one I'm going to try to make strictly based on who would be a good president, who really understands what's happened to America and how we've lost our economic leadership.
Clinton, meanwhile, is looking to Nebraska and West Virginia to give him his 23rd and 24th victories of the primary season. 56 national convention delegates are at stake. And with only token opposition from former California Governor Jerry Brown, Clinton is favored to get most of those delegates and add to the 1,700 plus he has already. 80% of what Clinton needs for the nomination. The candidate meets with uncommitted delegates from Minnesota in Minneapolis Tuesday night, before heading west to Portland, Oregon, then on to California for appearances Wednesday and Thursday. It'll be Clinton's second trip to California in less than a week. It is a pattern he plans to maintain through that state's June 2nd primary. No Democratic presidential candidate has won California since Lyndon Johnson in 1964. And Bill Clinton has in fact begun his anticipated fall campaign against George Bush in California. He is mindful that 4 years ago, Michael Dukakis came close to Bush in the state. Bush's winning margin was only 51% to 48%. A senior Clinton advisor says there is a good opportunity now to reintroduce Bill Clinton to the American voters on Clinton's own terms, without the pressures of a contested primary season. Being worked out, we're told, is how best to take advantage of a time when the Clinton campaign is convinced George Bush is on the defensive. Gene Randall, CNN, Little Rock.
One name that often pops up in speculation over Clinton's possible pick for a running mate is Senator Jay Rockefeller. The West Virginia, Bernie and I are not going to talk well today. The West Virginia Democrat joins us from Capitol Hill to discuss the VP search and politics in general on this primary day in his home state. Welcome, Senator. Let me ask you to put your objective hat on and give us the pros and cons of Senator Rockefeller on the ticket with Bill Clinton.
I'm not going to really do either of those, Catherine, because all I'm trying to do as chairman of the Democratic National Finance Committee, and every other way I can, is get Bill Clinton elected. He has a lot of good people he can choose from. It isn't on my mind right now, and I really don't have anything much more to add than that.
Well, it's certainly the topic among Democrats right now. Then if you won't talk about yourself, how about the ideal running mate? What are the characteristics he needs to balance the ticket?
Bill Clinton will have to make that judgment. And actually, I think that he said some time ago it ought to be somebody who can become president right away, should something happen to him. I think he's made that fairly clear. He's obviously picked in Warren Christopher a really careful, thorough, knowledgeable person. I think they'll make a good choice.
There's voting in your home state today, the primary in West Virginia. What is the mood of the electorate there?
The mood of the electorate there is about the same as it is everywhere in this country. I just, in fact, got back a few moments ago from West Virginia, and it's a very angry mood. None of the above is a lot of the feeling as far as both the state and the national is concerned. But there's a good turnout. People are voting. That's a good sign. It's a much heavier vote, I think, than in other parts of the country in previous primaries.
Some extraordinary polling going on in California, in Texas, and other states around the Union, indicating that Ross Perot is neck and neck with Clinton, ahead of him in certain states. What about those polls, and what about Perot's effect on the election?
I really find it hard to be able to analyze what Perot is going to do. I'd like to be able to come out with a marvelous piece of wisdom that sort of scoops up the next 6 months and encapsulate it. I don't know whether he'll be around in 6 months. He's clearly moving right now. He's clearly gathering the fascination, which is good as far as I'm concerned, because that's allowing Bill Clinton to readjust his campaign. Whether or not he'll stand the test of issues and of temper and all the rest of it, Catherine, I don't know. My bet would be that he won't, but I won't really bet on that until and unless Bill Clinton, which I think he will, captures the imagination of the American people. That should happen about the convention time or shortly thereafter.
The economy has certainly carried the day in terms of the #1 issue across the nation for months and months, but now the events in Los Angeles are turning to other urban issues, and there are several others cropping up, race being certainly one of them. Is the economy going to continue to drive the election?
It will, but I think there's a switch. If the economy improves somewhat, and I think most people are saying that it will, and we hope it will. I think the difference this year is that George Bush won't get credit for it. The wisdom is that if the economy improves, that helps the incumbent president. I think that George Bush has been rendered sufficiently anchorless, so to speak, or valueless in terms of running the country, not just by the American people, but I think increasingly by the press. He will not get credit for that. So it is the main issue, but I think it's an issue that's going to work for Bill Clinton, not George Bush.
Even if you think that Ross Perot may falter as his campaign picks up steam, it must be of concern to the Democratic Party that Bill Clinton is not holding well even against a third-party candidate. What kind of advice do you give the governor as he moves on in his campaign?
Bill Clinton, it's like taking a thermometer of a 14-year-old with a temperature. I mean, it's good for that day, but it may drop that night. I mean, that's Perot's situation. I don't know what's going to happen with him. Bill Clinton should focus on Bill Clinton, and he should focus, in my judgment, and I have said this to him, the fact I'm not one of the world's great experts to talk about growing up poor, but Bill Clinton is. I mean, Bill Clinton grew up in Hope, Arkansas, a very small community. His father beat the heck out of his mother. His father was an alcoholic. He stood up for his mother, put a shotgun at his father to protect his mother. I mean, this man has been through what most people in this country know something about. He hasn't talked about that yet. We don't know Bill Clinton yet. That's the difference between the previous 6 months and the 6 months between now and November 3rd.
Or maybe people are concerned they know Bill Clinton too well. Is it more focus on him personally or more focus on the issues that would help the campaign?
I think more focus on Bill Clinton and the issues is what will happen. And the focus on Bill Clinton, I believe, will come in a way which is important for the American people to understand that, and that is who is he? Who is he? He's not brawling with Jerry Brown, Paul Tsongas, a lot of other people. It's him versus Bush, or him versus Bush and Perot. But he gets to speak with clarity. He hasn't had that chance up until now. When people get to know Bill Clinton like I've known Bill Clinton for 15 years, it's going to be a very different situation in this country.
And finally, as he begins to look for a vice presidential running mate, how important is this selection in terms of actual votes come the fall?
Generally speaking, it doesn't make a lot of difference in that the selection will take place or will probably become known or get out or whatever somewhat before the convention, or there isn't a lot happening from now to the convention in the way of political battles in the Democratic Party. It may take on somewhat more character, but essentially people are going to vote for Clinton, which I hope they will. They're going to vote for Bush, and whatever happens to Perot.
Senator Jay Rockefeller of West Virginia, thank you very much for joining us. Bernie?
Catherine, in today's West Virginia primary, two well-known Democratic incumbents are waging a fierce battle for one seat in a redrawn congressional district. Alan Mollahan, who sits on the Appropriations Committee, held an early advantage. But he's facing fallout from 12 overdrafts at the House Bank. His opponent, Harley Staggers, is considered more liberal than Mollahan. But their backgrounds are similar. Both were elected to Congress in 1982, and their fathers were congressmen. In the West Virginia governor's race, incumbent Gaston Caperton faces a serious primary challenge from two Democrats. Caperton broke a pledge not to raise taxes, and that's been a key issue in his race against State Senator Charlotte Pritt and Attorney General Mario Palumbo.
A powwow on the problems of the inner city. Coming up next on Inside Politics, now that he's seen the blight firsthand, can President Bush agree with Democrats on an urban agenda? And does either side have any viable solutions? Our guests debate some ideas on the table.
So you're shopping at Frank's for great spring values.
At Frank's, we always spend less money on quality flowers, shrubs.
But what we really like are the great gardening tips.
Less money.
Great tips.
Now at Frank's, the amazing No Clog 2 that feeds anything from lilies to lawns without mixing or measuring is just $6.99. And choose from our colorful annuals and hanging baskets with Frank's quality difference. Expert selected and cared for and affordably priced.
Beautiful things begin at Frank's.
Great tips.
Frank's Nursery and Crafts.
I just picked up the mail and I noticed my tax refund. Compared to what I'm paying in taxes today, it's nothing.
I remember when this used to mean something.
I've got to find a way to keep more of what I earn.
Common sense says it's not what you earn, it's what you keep.
Well, at least this will pay for my phone bill.
And you can earn income that's tax-free with Fidelity Investments, America's largest mutual fund company.
I was on my way to my new accountant.
These are all taxable investments.
Yeah, and his tax bracket.
I knew I'd pay taxes on my salary, but my investment income?
He's not going to like the news.
So, what do we got?
The good news is that we have some great ideas for next year.
Next year?
With Fidelity's tax-free funds, you can earn income 100% free from federal taxes, and in many states, free from state taxes as well. Plus, there's no sales charge. Call now for this free booklet, A Common Sense Guide to Tax-Free Investing. Call 1-800-328-4100. Fidelity Investments. Common sense. Uncommon results.
On CNN Today, should the Constitution require Congress to keep a balanced budget? In the crossfire. Then on Prime News, do gun bans really work? Or do people find a way to buy them anyway? All today on CNN.
President Bush and Congress agreed today that something needs to be done about the problems facing urban America. But as often is the case in Washington these days, one very important question remains unanswered. Mary Tillotson joins us now from the White House. Mary?
Democrats and Republicans are trying to outdo each other, talking about the new bipartisan cooperation to solve the city's problems in this country after the LA riots. But so far, that bipartisanship does not include agreement on how to pay for any new help for American cities. In the spirit of working together, as President Bush put it, he invited Democratic congressional leaders to their first White House meeting this year about domestic problems. Mr. Bush wants congressional support for his resurrected programs to fight crime, foster home ownership and jobs, and spur investment in the inner city.
All of these are designed to restore hope and to bring some cohesion to these communities and offer these young people some opportunities.
The president has agreed to ask for $600 to $800 million in emergency federal funds to pay for immediate recovery efforts in Los Angeles. Mr. Bush said he doesn't know how much his other urban proposals would cost, but he does know he does not want to raise taxes to pay for them.
The idea that you have to raise taxes at this time when the economy is just starting to recover, I'm sorry, I will not support that.
Democratic leaders say a higher tax on wealthy Americans cannot be ruled out as a way to help the cities.
Everything's on the table.
But even absent agreement on that crucial question, how to pay, Democrats and Republicans say if such an agreement can ever be worked out, now's the time.
The spirit is very strong to work it out, and I think we will.
We've all had our political shots. Now's the time to get something done.
The viability of this country is at stake, and we must work together to try and get some solutions that will deal with those problems, and I'm very encouraged as a result of this meeting today.
A trio of mayors from New York and Seattle and Cleveland told Congress today help for the cities is urgent. And those mayors told Congress without the urgently needed aid, the troubles in L.A. were just a taste of what lies ahead. Bernie?
Even if Democrats and Republicans can work together, will their varying proposals really work to ease urban blight? Two guests join us to debate ideas being tossed around by both parties. From Los Angeles, Jim Johnson of the Urban Poverty Center at UCLA. He doesn't buy into the conservatives' claim that the Great Society is to blame for the crisis in the cities. And Doug Bandow of the Cato Institute joins us here in Washington. He opposes big money, big government, urban programs. Gentlemen, I throw the question on the table to each of you. Can government help, or should it?
I think we have to recognize that government's made a lot of the problems that we see today. Unfortunately, the federal government, local government, state governments have spent about $3.4 trillion since 1965. We have to look at where that money's gone. We have to look at other programs that have been involved. You look at the destruction of the housing market, for example, with local measures, zoning, building codes, rent control. You look at the lack of economic opportunity with programs like the minimum wage, which puts young teenagers out of work. You look at a whole host of programs like this, the welfare system, which unfortunately has contributed to the breakdown of the family. And I think that's the most frightening aspect we see within the inner city community, is the almost complete breakdown of family and community, which has contributed to this crisis. And money won't solve these problems.
Jim Johnson?
I think that what we must realize that over the last 20 years that our economy has undergone a radical restructuring, a restructuring process that has devastated the employment prospects of inner city individuals and minorities in particular. If we look at the Los Angeles situation, for an example, and South Central in particular, between 1978 and 1982, that community lost 70,000 jobs. Jobs that were high wage, highly unionized jobs that paid a livable wage and enabled people to form and maintain stable families. At the same time, when you begin to look at the last 12 years of Republican administration, what we've seen is a withdrawal of the social safety net and a replacement of it with a drag net, increasing emphasis on incarceration and the warehousing of large numbers of inner city youth in particular, while not supporting the kinds of institutions that have historically served as mediating roles in those environments.
I'm sorry, please.
Mediating roles in terms of encouraging inner city residents and youth in particular to pursue mainstream avenues of social and economic mobility and discouraging them from engaging in dysfunctional behaviors.
Mr. Johnson, you and Mr. Bandow are well-intentioned professionals. I want to ask you a very simple question. What is the solution?
I think it's very complex. I think we have to look at a whole host of issues. We have to look, I think, at the drug war, which has created this alternative economic opportunity for young youths who can't get involved in the regular job market. We have to look at a host of regulations and problems which stop kids from getting jobs, which stop their parents from getting jobs. We have to look at the pressures within the welfare system, the economic incentives, which historically have promoted illegitimacy, the fact that now 1/5 of children born in the inner city are illegitimate, that have really forestalled even family formation.
When you say look at, what do you mean?
I think we have to get rid of a lot of these things. I mean, I think we have to change the welfare system so we don't have those kind of disincentives.
Jim Johnson, you agree with that?
No, I don't. I think what we need is a national urban policy that simultaneously seeks to rebuild the infrastructure of inner city communities and at the same time equip inner city residents with the kinds of skills that will enable them to be employable in the mainstream economy. And I am not confident that the current kinds of proposals that are being talked about by the Republican administration, especially urban enterprise zones, are the answer. I think it's a mistake to think and expect the private sector to solve this problem. They haven't done it in the past, and the kinds of incentives that are being proposed to attract businesses to communities are the ones that are not high priority items for businesses.
Doug Bandow, what do you think of enterprise zones?
Well, I think, frankly, a problem is South Central Los Angeles was an enterprise zone. I mean, I think that clearly that's not nearly enough. I think
so neither of you likes them?
No.
No, I don't. They're inadequate. I think there are a lot of other things that we've got to do. I think we have to go after the educational system, give parents choice, give them an opportunity to get their kids out of these schools that are merely warehouses for crime.
The point, I'm sorry, but we must realize that choice is not a panacea for inner city kids. If we assume that kids do have access to schools and environments, suburban environments and the like, the two things that we have to be concerned about, one is white flight by parents who have kids in those schools, and two, a resegregation of minority kids within the schools through discriminatory educational policies. So it's not a panacea, and we must realize that.
Well, there are no panaceas. That's the problem. But spending more money also isn't a panacea. And I think we found that out over the last 30 years.
I think if the money is channelized and spent in the proper direction, I think we can solve this problem. I personally am an advocate of taking a serious look at WPA-type initiatives, analogous WPA-type initiatives similar to the one that we implemented in the 1930s to rebuild the infrastructure of highways and national parks and the like in this country. I think there are some lessons to be learned and applied in urban America to rebuild and reinvigorate inner cities like the South Central area here in Los Angeles.
You know, listening to you two, and I'm certain our viewers are thinking about the same time, for the first time in presidential elections, 50%, at least 50% of the electorate will come not from big cities, but from suburbia. And the fact of the matter is that black and white middle-class people have fled the cities. Your inner cities now are filled by poor people, black poor, Hispanic poor. What do you do about that?
Well, I think people are still concerned. I think the American people are basically a compassionate people. I think what you have, though, is a real skepticism about some of the traditional remedies, and frankly, a skepticism about our political leaders today. And I wish I shared Mr. Johnson's hope that money could be channeled correctly and spent correctly. If we look over the past 25, 30 years, we have an awful lot of programs that haven't worked at all, and we have some that I think have been absolutely, counterproductive.
Let me ask Mr. Johnson, do you have any hope?
I'm hopeful, and I think the important thing for us to do is not to emphasize and harp on the things that haven't worked, but rather look at the things that have. And then to support the kinds of things that have worked. We know that Head Start worked, for an example. We know that the Job Corps program worked for the so-called hardcore disadvantaged. Why aren't we allocating more resources to those kinds of programs that really work? At the same time, we know that there are currently some programs proposed and implemented by the current administration that don't work. We know that the JTPA program doesn't work, for an example.
Jim Johnson and Doug Bandow, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Inside Politics will be right back.
Now, here's something my kids and I will agree on. These are boring. Or as my kids would say, bogus, Mom. Well, come on, they're just a bunch of flakes. Hold on a minute. I like this. I didn't think I would. I just like it. It's kind of simple and, I don't know, it just tastes good.
Kellogg's Corn Flakes.
Kellogg's Corn Flakes? Brutal. No, that's what my kids would say.
Taste them again for the first time.
Well, actually, we've always tried to watch what we eat. I mean, okra and garlic are, what, part of our lives.
Now we hear a lot about garlic.
Yeah.
So we take Quai odor-free garlic tablets.
And you know, they really are odor-free.
Millions of Europeans have been taking Quai odor-free garlic tablets for years. It's part of their daily diet. It's the best. And now it's available in this country, too.
Quai is available at quality drugstores, health and natural food stores, and general nutrition centers. Quai, science and nature working for you.
Want to trade? What you got? Give me an orange juice, I'll give you my sandwich. I got a sandwich. Give me an orange juice for my donut. Half deodorant. Deal.
There's nothing like 100% pure Florida quality orange juice with the vitamins, minerals, and taste that make you feel so good.
Hey, you drank more than half. I had to. My half was at the bottom.
100% pure Florida quality orange juice. It makes you feel so good.
This new Fantastic cuts through grease without leaving a film. So, thanks to Fantastic, my kitchen looks like new. Wish I could say the same about my refrigerator. When did I buy a lime? That used to be a head of lettuce. No grease, no film, new Fantastic.
The NBA playoffs on TNT. With the series tied, do the Knicks have the Bulls worried? But of course! First, it's back to Chicago, then on to Seattle for the Jazz and Sonics. Playoff pressure continues tonight at 8 Eastern on TNT.
if we could make all the clean air and water we need?
What if there was enough food for everyone?
What if we understood the aging process?
What if we cared so much about education we made the most of every mind?
What if research in space made life better on Earth?
We're helping to build Space Station Freedom, the next step in space exploration, and a new way to look at the home planet.
Thermos, a name that stands for quality and innovation, takes a bold new step in the design of gas grills. Introducing the Minute Grill Limited Gas Barbecue. It features the Minute Grill factory assembly. Go from carton to cooking in no time. The deluxe cooking system distributes heat evenly while reducing flare-ups. Add the aluminum side shelves and adjustable top vent, and you have a gas grill like no other. The Minute Grill Limited Gas Barbecue, only from Thermos.
I just picked up the mail and I noticed my tax refund. Compared to what I'm paying in taxes today, it's nothing.
I remember when this used to mean something.
I've got to find a way to keep more of what I earn.
Common sense says it's not what you earn, it's what you keep.
Well, at least this will pay for my phone bill.
And you can earn income that's tax-free with Fidelity Investments, America's largest mutual fund company.
I was on my way to my new accountant.
He's in all taxable investments.
Yeah, and his tax bracket.
I knew I'd pay taxes on my salary, but my investment income?
He's not going to like the news.
So, what do we got?
The good news is that we have some great ideas for next year.
Next year.
With Fidelity's tax-free funds, you can earn income 100% free from federal taxes, and in many states, free from state taxes as well. Plus, there's no sales charge. Call now for this free booklet, A Common Sense Guide to Tax-Free Investing. Call 1-800-328-4100. Fidelity Investments. Common sense. Uncommon results.
We're almost at the finish line for today, but when Inside Politics 92 lines up in the starting gate tomorrow, we'll have a tale of dog racing in Arkansas, campaign contributions, and questions about the way Bill Clinton does business with business. That's all for this edition of Inside Politics 92. I'm Catherine Crier in Atlanta.
I'm Bernard Shaw in Washington. Thanks for watching. Lou Waters has a preview of what's coming up next on CNN.
Right, Bernie, just ahead, it may be the first program of its kind in the nation. A Florida high school begins testing students for AIDS.
There are kids out here in the world that do have this disease, and I think it's a good idea for them to come to the school and find the kids because this is where the kids are.
But local health officials have decided against taking part in the program. Also, President Bush has a plan to weed out crime and drugs from blighted urban areas. He and Democratic critics try to find common ground. And female anger at Oxford. Join Cheryl Atkinson and me for the rest of Early Prime next here on CNN.
Coming up, Early Prime continues, followed by Showbiz Today, after a word from your local cable systems, next on CNN.
If you'd like to give a special gift to a boy or girl 8 years old and up, get your pencil ready and write down this number because I've got just the answer for you. It's National Geographic World Magazine to compete for a $5,000 scholarship. And when you call with your gift order, we'll also mail a special personalized gift card from you. Call 1-800-257-1257. That's 1-800-257-1257. 12 colorful issues, junior membership, and the welcome kit, plus a card from you. This gift lasts a year. The benefits last a lifetime.